Ha! G'day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Brass on Tap Live. We have a few people in here joining us live, which is great. Spread the word. We're going to have a great time tonight with our guest. Just before we get to that, don't forget to head over to YouTube, my YouTube channel, Brass on Tap. There's already 8 episodes there with some fantastic people. They're all on the playlist there. Last week was Rex Richardson, and it was a great chat. We got deep and meaningful into some of his cadenzas, into some of his styles. He has some great announcements that he's bringing out. He's bringing out some this is 100 days of practice. So he's bringing out an actual book based on that 100 days of practice, and that's going to be a great one, so keep your ear down for that. Apart from that, what can I say about our next guest, Bryan Davis? I mean, it speaks for himself. He's a world-renowned trumpet player. So many people follow him on here. It's exciting to have him on. Let me tell you a little bit about him. Obviously, he resided in the UK, born in the UK, raised in the UK, did his degree through Leeds College of Music. He's moved on to New York City, and he's taken the world by storm over there. His international reputation as a lead trumpet player and a jazz soloist is bar none. He is an incredible trumpet player. Some of the people he's worked with, his trumpet teachers were J. Brian Brown, Richard Isles, Dick Howden, Gerard Presenza, Brian Lynch, and of course Roger Ingram. When you listen to him play, you can definitely tell that you could hear his teachers that he's playing. It is sensational. We'll get into people that he's played with along the times through the stream. Here's a little intro for some of our guys, even our younger crew, that may not have heard Bryan before. And if you watch real carefully, you may see some steam coming out the end of his instrument. We might get into that in the stream as well. Here's a little video. Enjoy. Holy smokes! Yeah, honestly, Bryan is an absolute legend. Can't wait to get him on. However, we need to get the stream started first, so let's get that done. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I'm super excited to have Bryan on tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, Bryan Davis. How you doing, Bryan?
Very well, thanks, Ben. How are you?
I'm very good. I'm so much happier that we can get you on in your very busy schedule. Obviously, you're an innovator, inspirator. You're the man and the legend of YouTube, really, when it comes down to trumpet playing. Your Airflow Music is incredible. It's a YouTube channel of giving information for free. I mean, that's insane, right? But we'll dive into that a little bit later. I like starting these streams off with just checking out how life is and how life with you is, especially in this crazy world we're in right now. So how has life been this year, and how's it looking for the future?
Well, it's been a strange old year, hasn't it?
As
I don't think anyone could really have predicted that things would have gone down this way, and that we'd be it's a bit of a pickle, honestly, that we're all in. But
yeah,
it was a strange time, particularly back in the spring, as everyone experienced. At one time or another, we eventually went into some form of lockdown. And I'm here in New York, and obviously for months and months, we were the epicenter of the world.
Oh yeah.
So it was crazy, and so honestly, that was a difficult time. The rug got pulled kind of work wise and life wise, just in terms of the fact we had to stay home all the time and couldn't do all the things that were on the calendar. But then here, it was such a virus epicenter that, you know, that first 2 months between kind of March and the end of April,
Yeah.
I'd lost a dozen friends and colleagues,
Wow. That's incredible, isn't it?
because there was so many people who got this thing and passed away from it,
Yeah.
in the city right here and like in my immediate circle.
Wow. That's
And
I'm
of
so
all
sorry to
different
hear
age
that.
groups as well. Yeah, well, thank you. It's one of those things, and it's one of those things that we adjust to in this time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that made the start of this whole thing especially difficult for me because, you're just dealing with a lot of stuff.
Of course you are.
Apart from the fact of kind of having work life and all that stuff taken away, then it's like people you knew and people you worked with and admired and who were friends and stuff like that. But some heartening stories come out of that. I had some other friends and colleagues who got the damn thing, and one of my dear friends, a great trombonist called Ron Wilkins. We've been friends for a long time. He got it. He ended up on a ventilator for 37 days.
Wow. That's incredible.
And he came out of it, and he's in pretty good shape, all things considered.
Is his lungs and
He's
everything?
playing
Is he
again. He
surviving
sounds
now?
great.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, he's good.
Good. Good.
I'm
That's good.
not, I think there's some lingering stuff, but
Yeah.
basically he's good.
That's great.
And so you get some kind of heartening stories out
Yeah.
of it like that. And what's interesting about that is there were several of those and several older colleagues where you get that dreadful sinking feeling when you get the news that they're in the hospital with this thing.
Yeah.
And then they come through it. And I started to realize, actually, it's kind of interesting, kind of related to this whole thing. They were all wind instrumentalists.
Yeah.
All the people who pulled it back, even though you would look at them and go, oh, that guy's 80 years old. There's no way.
Strong lungs. Yeah.
Strong lungs, trained lungs, like used
Yeah.
to breathing in a certain way. And that was kind of one of the remarkable things. And I think my suspicion is that in time, when we get past the immediate kind of panic stations version of this,
Yeah.
and they can study it a little bit more, apart from just like dealing with it right now,
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a correlation there that people are going to get interested in.
I think there will be. So, I mean,
So-
it's obviously, I just found out a colleague just lost one of their cousins. So as you said, it's still happening right now, so people out there, please stay vigilant. Please stay on this, keep your practice up. You never know. As Bryan said, it may help in the situation, but let's just keep vigilant. Let's look after each other in this situation. So Bryan, is there stuff looking towards the future? Obviously you're doing a lot now, but in the future, have you got, like a gig slowly coming back in for you?
Not really. As we got through the summer here and the situation in New York City itself, we really got things under control, and in the state, because our state governor was really on top of just being like on TV every day going, here's what's happening, here's what we need to do. And it kind of kept everyone on top of it. It was a sort of leadership that we got here that hasn't seemed to have been exhibited in a lot of other places.
Yeah.
And so we got it relatively under control in a certain way.
Okay.
Not in the way where anything can actually reopen, or we can have the theatres going again, or, there's any clubs working or anything like that. There's a couple doing very limited stuff, but it's kind of getting going again.
Yeah.
In that sense. But I mean, there's not going to be any big band gigs indoors.
No. Not for a while.
For the foreseeable future.
Exactly. No, that's exactly right. I mean, obviously, the one thing that can continue is Zoom lessons, which I hear that is what you do. That is what you do very well. Am I right in saying
that? It's what I do a lot of the time.
Exactly. Obviously, you do it very well. I mean, you don't get your reputation with not. So obviously, everyone
it's funny when this whole thing came up. One of my college teaching jobs at the new school, they sent around we got transferred to online for the first time, and we got they sent around all the missives and they said, "Oh, this is what you got to do, and if you've got any questions." And there was a whole survey we had to fill in at one point. Are you all set up for technology? And is it this, that, and the other? And I just wrote back in every box, I've been doing this since 2008.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's insane, isn't it? If you think about it, like, like I think I figured it out. Someone asked me the other day, and you never get asked how long you've been playing for, and I just went, "How old am I now?" Because I just turned 38. And I went, "Oh, been playing for 30 years." So, oh, okay, that's a lot of life. So, but so. Okay, let's go back to a little bit of a humble beginning, obviously. So the UK, you went through Nijo, and you did all West End shows. How was that?
Nijo was an extraordinary thing. I mean, I lived in the north of England.
Yeah.
Always, I had brief sojourns into town, but for the most part, I lived up north. And for a long time, really, I was the guy on the road. I did bits and pieces in London, but not too much. But Niger was a great time, which I remember very fondly. I mean, at that time, it was a very particular scene, and it still had the old kind of competitive rat race version that was the hallmark of doing that in the, the 80s and the 90s, which was basically when I was doing it. I first went along at about 92, and actually, the first day I ever went in there, I think, was Gerald Presence's last rehearsal.
Oh, really? Holy smokes!
Like we just kind of overlapped there, and but I met so many friends, so many people I'm still friends with now. That I did that band off and on for 10 years.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing talking to all you guys as well. And the one, there's always a common name. It's always Gerard. Gerard Presents that comes up all the ways. So it's amazing that you brought him us as well. You famously have been quoted to say, "Yes, I've had an education, but I learned a lot of what I know on the road." Could you dive into that a little bit?
Well, I mean, the thing about learning to play music and being a musician and things like that is you learn it by doing. You can practice a whole bunch of stuff, and you need to develop technique for sure, and you need to spend time doing that. But in actual fact, it's a collaborative medium.
Massively, yeah.
And it's about being in the room with other people, kind of unspokenly going towards the same goal.
Yeah, feeding off them, really.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I've been fortunate. Like I say, I was a road guy most of the time.
Yeah.
I did a lot of touring and stuff like that, but I was always on the European tour version of the show rather than the West End one or something like that.
Yeah.
So we'd go from place to place and do a whole bunch of things.
I mean, some of the guys you must have played with would have been like incredible as well. Like there must have been some really great musicians out there, and you just learn.
Oh, absolutely. Well, particularly when we did the Rat Pack, we had a whole bunch of great guys coming through the band all the time.
I remember when I first got this country, I got booked for a Rat Pack gig. I think it was in Belgium or something like that. I was filling in for someone who couldn't do it, and they turned around and said, "Oh yeah, the usual lead player for this is Brian." And I was like, "You're kidding! The one gig I'm doing a Rat Pack and Brian's not here." I was gutted. I really was.
When was that? Because you got here,
probably 2008, maybe, I think.
Yeah, something like that. And by that time, I was probably off on the US tour that week.
Yeah, you were. It was really annoying.
Yeah, that was an exhausting couple of years, because when we'd be in sequence of doing those, we'd do the American tour over the winter.
Yeah.
So from like late September, early October through to about May, we did it for I think 3 years running.
Yep.
And the way it was organized was that we went to the States for 2 weeks, maybe 3 if we were lucky. And then we came back and did the equivalent time in Europe.
Oh, wow. Sounds great.
And so it was absolutely non-stop, and it was jet lag central.
So how do you deal with that kind of stuff when you're going through massive time zones, obviously going from air-conditioned aeroplanes to different climates so how do you focus on keeping those chops supple to be able to play every show, apart from having a beer or two?
Well, I mean, it's really not having a beer or two.
Fair one.
This is
my life,
particularly when I'm traveling. I mean, I drink an extraordinary amount of water.
Stay hydrated. That is a massive thing, and I got to admit, I do notice a lot more now I'm older, to do with my lips just they don't tighten up when I've hydrated. So it's it's amazing water, isn't it? Why haven't we figured that out earlier? Well, you have.
Well, I mean, but it's a funny thing because I mean, you get into the realm of like how the body works and stuff like that, and we have to remember that basically everything that we're dealing with when we're playing, all the muscles and all the various systems of the body, everything is made of, what is it, 75 or 80% water.
Yeah, massively.
And particularly in the modern world, particularly if we live in a city or we travel a lot or something like that, we generally live in a state of stage 1 dehydration.
Oh, Jesus. That's weird when you think about it like that, isn't it?
You know, not that we're, you know, super dry or anything like that, but we're not quite there.
Yeah.
It's
not flowing. Yeah.
And so just staying on top of that. And it's interesting that they're kind of very into it over here. You see, if you watch sports and you watch anything about people training for sports, the metric they have is always that your daily water intake, just to stay hydrated, should be what is it? It's half a fluid ounce for every pound of body weight. So about 30 milliliters for every kilo of body weight.
Yeah, right. That's a lot of water to stay hydrated.
And yeah, so you know,
yeah,
I'm not going to quite do the maths on that because it's not going to be in my favor. But
yeah, it's
but I've got to drink something like 3 liters of water a day just to stay hydrated before I do anything that uses it.
Yeah, exactly. And when you're playing, you're obviously using a lot of it, aren't you? So
yeah, exactly. You know, you're in an environment where there's lights and it's hot and you're sweating maybe, or it's just dry in the air because there's pyrotechnics or something like that.
Yeah.
And, you know, it dries you out.
Yeah, it certainly does. We've got a few people in here. Thanks so much, guys, for joining us. We've got our first question in from Andrew Davids. Thanks very much for joining us. It's right here. It says, would love to hear his thoughts on efficiency and equipment in helping achieve this. Anything you could anything you could go along with that, Bryan?
Oh, so much. How long have we got?
Shall we start with?
Be here till this.
So shall we?
We're going to be here till this time tomorrow, but that's okay.
Yeah. Shall we start with efficiency? We'll start with that one first. What's some advice you could give to Andrew? Your thoughts on efficiency?
Well, I mean, there's a few different sides to, you know, questions about this. You mentioned equipment in particular.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, you know, we tend to get a little bit bogged down in what some of the perceived stats are about our equipment.
Yeah.
People will always rattle on about bore size all the time.
Yep.
You know, not to be a huge bore, but there we go. And hey, here's the jokes, folks. And but the thing with that is we tend to get bogged down in whether a horn is, you know, medium, large bore, whatever it is. And really that is important in one sense, but in one sense it's irrelevant because it depends what's getting you there. The bore size, the way they measure it typically, is the size of the ports through the valves.
Yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of tubing before you get there.
Yeah.
A couple of feet of it, better part of a meter before you even get there. So, you know, there's a lot of other stuff going on there that we need to start dealing with. So while that can have an effect, but if you've got a lead pipe that's working very tightly before you get to that bore, the large bore doesn't really affect it. It may or may not balance well, but that's down to how you feel about playing that instrument.
Yeah. Would you say to a point that it depends on how much energy you're putting through the horn to produce what you need to produce, to then decide on what equipment?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the other side, obviously, of being efficient is, you know, doing something using the necessary amount of energy, rather than an excess amount of energy.
So you yourself, you're a Chagall artist, aren't you?
Yeah, I play Chagall.
Yeah, Chagalls. Yeah. So just for everyone out there, I'm guessing it's common knowledge. What's your What's your ratio? So from say mouthpiece to bore size and stuff like that. Not to geek out, but yeah,
This is my Sharga James Morrison
beautiful.
Master Series, the proper like James artist model.
Yep.
This through the valves, I believe, is a 0.459 inch, so it's a medium large.
Medium large, yeah.
And generally, again, it depends on how other parts of it are designed, but generally you don't need anything larger than that. And there's this, this mistaken belief that you need to have large bore to have a big sound.
Yeah.
It may help in some ways, particularly if you tend to blow too hard, because it'll give you a little more space to do that.
Yeah. In the end, I guess that comes down to efficiency again, doesn't it? You need to be more efficient.
Exactly.
And you get the
that's the other thing we'll get down to. But yeah. I mean, this is a medium large through the valves, but it's got a decently, let's see if it focuses in. There we go. It's got a decently tight lead pipe up front.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
So, I mean, the reason the horn I played before this was a Yamaha Wayne Bergeron, the 8335 LA.
Great horns. Yeah.
Very similar horns in some ways. This actually plays a little tighter.
Yeah.
It's a little closer to a Bobby Shoe Yamaha. But the difference is that there's a whole bunch of different stuff going on in the bell somewhere in terms of the frequencies you get out of it. So I found it's got a much richer sound palette than the Yamahas.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's amazing to dive into it, isn't
it? Which is why I like it.
Yeah, of course.
It's, it's not to everyone's taste, but what is?
Now, everyone has a sound in their head. And what kind of sound are you thinking? Everyone has inspirations. What are some of your inspirations? And when you're playing lead, because I mean, a lot of your stuff you're getting these days, like you go live on Instagram and stuff like that. And, and when I saw something ridiculous the other day, you're playing your first chart and it was crazy. You just picked one out, picked the double C, boom, there it was. Who are you thinking about when you're focusing on that kind of stuff? Do you have people in your head, or have you just sort of created your own sound in your head?
I mean, there's all kinds of people I grew up loving their playing and stuff like that, and just kind of wanted to be that way. And one of my pound for pound in, recorded music in the last 30 years, maybe 40 years, more in the modern era.
Yeah.
When I came up and started listening to stuff and that was contemporary, Roger Ingram was my favorite.
Yeah. Monster player. Talk about efficiency. Wow.
Well, absolutely. And that's where, that's who taught me about a lot of this stuff and helped me figure out, how to deal with it. But also, you see, we all know Roger's playing from those early years with Harry Connick Jr. in particular.
Yeah.
In the early mid-90s, and those records like Blue Light, Red Light and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, no one was banging them out then.
Yeah, I mean, unbelievable. And, in 92 or whatever it was when everyone first heard Blue Light, Red Light, and he just has that, that little quiet, creepy intro. Bosh is that double D, like nobody's business.
Yeah.
It's incredible, and it set the world alight, at least in our niche of it, and quite rightly so, because it's wonderful playing.
Yeah.
And he sounds great on those records. But actually, the real stuff is the Woody Herman in the late 80s.
Yeah, great band as well. Wow.
If you listen to the Woody Herman band with Roger on lead from about 1985 to about 1987 when Woody passed.
Yeah.
That is pound for pound the most extraordinary lead trumpet playing you will ever hear.
It's just got the sizzle in his sound, doesn't he? It's just
great sound and, great high notes, but it's not even about the high notes. No. It's the consistency and just the sizzle and the intensity and the swing and the groove of the thing.
Yeah.
It's utterly solid all the way up and down. He's popping double C's all over it.
Yeah.
When it's called for in the chart. And that's how that book was written.
Yeah.
It was a proviso for getting on that gig by all accounts at that time.
Yeah.
Because Bill Chase had ruined it for everyone by trying to be the high note guy and the lead player in the 60s.
Yeah. Exactly. Tom Tate's popped by the way. He says, "Hey chaps."
Hello, Tom. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, just quick question before we go on as well, before I forget. He says, Andy Seward says, any chance we will get to hear you play in London in the future?
Is there any chance we'll get to hear anybody play in London in the future?
Well, that is a good question. Hopefully by Easter is what the government are saying. But
Oh,
we can only cross
I
our
think there
fingers.
might be a. I think, unfortunately, they might be a shade optimistic there, but I hope for the best. Um, I'll be back at some stage to do something, I'm sure.
Good. I'm hoping to get you over for some things as well. That'll be obviously in about a year's time, if not a little bit longer. It's all in the
Yeah,
pipeline
I mean,
once everything starts up. But yes, definitely want to get you over.
oh, lovely. I mean, I get over 2 or 3 times a year typically.
Of
I just
course.
not often to play.
Yeah, and usually when you come over, you're absolute flat chap, and then you're back again. So,
Yeah,
but
I mean, it's largely about visiting family and stuff
of
like that,
course,
though.
of course. On
So,
Andreas Zellhofer, is that right? I hope I said that right. I'm very sorry. He says Brian is my favorite trumpet teacher. And Peter Holsberg's come through as well and says, Woody Herman, Roger is awesome. Those Fed Chalk charts.
oh yeah, John Fedchock's writing on that band is extraordinary.
Yeah, it's amazing. Thanks so much, guys, for joining us. If you do have any questions for Brian, please get them through and I'll ask them as the time progresses. Now, before you went to America, you did.
Hmm.
You were learning with. Did you learn with Roger when you went to America? Did you? So was your
That
teacher
was what
Gerard over here?
I I studied a couple times with Gerard.
Right. Yeah.
Back when he was first teaching in the mid 90s, when he'd come up to Leeds for gigs from time to time.
Yeah.
Took a couple lessons early on.
Yeah.
We kind of stayed in touch a little bit, and more recently his book, the MAP book, The Modern Approach to Trumpet Playing,
Yeah.
playing the trumpet, whatever it's called. And I don't remember the title, but I'm about to tell you it's one of my favorite books, which is
Fine.
ludicrous because I'm not getting the title right, but you get the idea.
Yeah, but we remember the exercises, not the title, don't we? So
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that thing's great, and his approach to dealing with articulation in particular,
yeah,
was in its infancy when I took lessons with him, but
yeah,
has developed into a whole thing now.
yeah,
And you know, but I mean, also Gerard's one of the most extraordinary players ever to pick the thing up. So
he certainly is. Yeah, I remember he went back. I was telling Tom Walsh about this on a stream as well, and he went back to, oh, I want to make my chops more efficient. And he just
mhm,
started at the basics again and he was doing like a little online sort of video sort of keeper of it. And I was just watching it going,
mhm.
you're trying to make your chops more efficient. It's like they're already super efficient now. It was yeah. So
Yeah.
right. So one thing for me is obviously being in Europe before you went to America. Is that where your relationship with people like Thomas Ganch and the big bands and stuff like that, was that from the tours that you did from over here? Is that when you?
Yeah, absolutely. We used to do European tours. I was over prior to doing the Rat Pack from going back from about, I guess, 99 to about 2004. I did a series of tours for a German production company,
Oh, right, okay.
like winter tours, doing shows, bus and truck things, real small band, but playing musicals.
Hmm.
I had a couple of years doing the official tribute to the Blues Brothers with them, with my old mate Steve Parry,
Yep.
and a bunch of other people on that band from time to time who you'll probably know.
Yep.
Um, and those were really fun. But also we did a 42nd Street and a cabaret for a season and stuff like that. And so we were just in Germany for 6, 7 months out of the year doing that. And so, of course, you're playing the show. What do you do? As soon as you get to a city that's got a jazz club or something and you can get there at the appropriate time, you get there.
Of course. Even if you're dead tired.
And yeah,
You still
exactly.
get there.
And particularly if it works out that you can get to a jam session or something,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I was all about that stuff at all times, particularly at that time.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's where I met Thomas for the first time at Porgy and Bess in Vienna.
Yep.
He was hosting the jam session, and I
Was it
got up
Guns N'
and
Roses
played.
back then? Was it called Guns N' Roses?
this was just literally Thomas
Just a jam
hosting a
session,
jam session.
as he
I
always
think Guns N'
does. It was
Roses was,
incredible.
yeah,
Yeah,
was always on the go, but
yeah,
he was, he was doing the Vienna Art Orchestra at that time when that was still going, and which was his kind of big
yeah. Of course.
introductory to the world gig outside of Knoxville Brass.
Yeah,
And yeah, and so I just met him there, and then out of the blue one day he called me up and said, I've got this tour booked, and all my guys have just ditched me because they've got the Vienna Art Tour, and I'm not doing it. So I need someone to come play lead trumpet. Do you want to come do it?
that's brilliant.
And I was surprised he even kept my phone number.
Yeah. Well, you just never know. It just proves you never know who's listening and who's taking note, and keeping stuff on.
Yeah, exactly. And that was, I mean, Guns N' Roses was a really fun thing to do. I did that, I guess, from probably first did it in 2007 or something like that.
Right.
And last time we did it was probably in about 2012.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if you don't mind, I would love to play a little smash out trumpet session between yourself, Adam Rapper, and Thomas Gensch, with a tribute to Bill Chase. Now, this is a little bit high octane, everyone, so might want to keep your hands on the volume buttons. Enjoy this. I mean, well and truly tributed to Bill Chase there. It's high octane and crazy. I just love that it just builds and builds and builds. Obviously, Thomas brings it down again, and then it just builds and builds and builds again. And I mean, the thing that shocked me when I first saw that way back in the day, and obviously it got sent around, did the rounds. There's videos out there that just do the rounds around the world on YouTube. But the greatest thing is that you've just been smashing out these solos, and then you have what I think 4 bars off, and then it's like okay, and you think that most people would just be like, and then you just do it again and finish with the most massive double C, and it's like, okay, yeah, that's how you do it. So let's now move on to Airflow Music. What a concept, what a brand. It's incredible. Congratulations. I hope it's going very successful. I think it's incredible, and I think the world is a very, very lucky place to have yourself giving a lot of stuff for free on YouTube, really. But then you can't go past that. You need to get these books. These books are incredible, and that's what you go through a lot in your YouTube stuff. Just to give you a rundown, even though I know you do it, but give everyone else, especially the junior guys out here, that the amateurs or the professionals, the guys who haven't heard of your books, you go onto YouTube, and there's even a thing called Trumpet A to Z that you do, where you literally have a letter for every single, like, something completely different. Now you're covering anything from, I had to write it all down, there's so much of it. You're covering everything from embouchure, playing high more easily, improve efficiency, level up, slow practice, more endurance, better tone, easier response, less pressure, more consistency, make your chops feel great, supercharged breath. I mean, the list goes on. I'm not even a quarter through my list of the stuff that you offer, and I've got to say it's incredible, and it's something that a lot of people are admiring around the world and tuning in, which and rightfully so. So just behind Airflow music, what was your concept? Where were you thinking when you brought it out, and what was your background for writing your books?
Well, I mean, I've been teaching off and on for a long time, but in particular, since about 2007 and 2008, I've really gotten into doing a lot of teaching, as much as time and interest from people will permit, really. And stay busy doing it, and it's great. It's sustained me through this weird year in a lot of ways. But I mean, I can always be busier.
Of course.
So let's make that clear.
Yeah.
So if anyone's thinking, no, he's too busy. No, I'm not too busy. Please give me a shout.
Contact him.
But yeah, I mean, the thing with it was really some of the exercises I'd written for myself and for students along the way, I just felt like there was enough there that they kind of needed a home.
Yeah.
And they needed to get out there.
Yeah.
And I even, had preliminary discussions with a couple of publishers and things like that about putting it together. And of course, in the end, they're not really that interested.
Yeah.
Because, random bloke with a trumpet number 27.
Exactly.
So it's...
You're so right, though. Like, how do people not think this is going to be a great idea? They just go, they don't see dollar signs, so they just go, you're all right. And it's ridiculous. Like, what you're doing is incredible.
Well, that's very kind. I'm just trying to get a bit of common sense out there for the most part. And the first thing was the first book, the combination drills. And I, having kind of looked around to see if something could be done for that for a while, I realized that it was just as easy to do it myself and get it going.
While you're chatting, keep chatting, and I'm just going to outline. Oh, I don't know how I've done that. Get rid of me. There we go. I'm just going to outline. Here, while you're chatting, all your little books that you got.
Oh, there we go.
So
now we've got the good stuff coming on the screen. That's what we like.
So I left off Twisted Technical Studies for Trombone, but it's the same book. So just for trombone. But yeah, go for it.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, I started out combination drills was the first one. There's 2 volumes of that now. And those they're called combination drills because the idea is, I mean, ostensibly they're comparatively simple scale patterns.
Yeah.
Develop scale patterns. So, but the idea is that you practice them in such a way that it works on a combination of different skills all at once. And we're very much approaching it from that point of view, rather than just saying, in this exercise, I am working on my tonguing.
Gotcha.
In this exercise, I am working on X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
And which a lot of stuff tends to get kind of geared towards in the way it's approached in other books and things like that. And really, I mean, it comes down to the name of the whole thing, Airflow music. Really, everything is a flow study.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what you play.
No.
If you're practicing something, it's a flow study.
Yeah.
Because your air has to flow. You've got to figure out how that balances and how that does what it needs to do in order to play successfully, and how it needs to interact with the tongue or the fingers or whatever other technical facet that is. But you need some way of practicing these things and consciously practicing these things all together.
Yeah.
So that they become part of a unified overall technique and register rather than being split up into a whole bunch of different things. Because the thing I noticed was that, of course, you see a lot of the people who come in for a lesson, they go, well, I have trouble with this. And they've got two completely separate ways of playing slurred things and tongue things, for instance. And so they've got one way they're playing if they're slurring, and they've got one way if they're playing if they're tonguing, or they've got one way they play in the low register and one way they play in the high register, or something like that. And so it's fine until you have to combine the two.
Yeah.
You ask someone to play a 3-octave chromatic scale, or 2.5 octave chromatic scale, and a lot of people will struggle with that because they've got a low gear and a high gear.
Yeah. Or even low embouchure, high embouchure. They change.
Yeah, exactly. However you want to describe it specifically, but that's the idea. So it's about bringing things together and getting stuff connected. So combination drills, if you follow the instructions and practice in the way it's prescribed, you can work. I think I figured out it's 12 fundamentals at a time per exercise.
Yeah.
Between tonguing and fingering, and also addressing musical fundamentals like scales and like learning your keys and things like that we all need to do. So that was the kind of genius behind that. And it's just about getting that stuff done. And I mean, I knew it was worthwhile to get out there, but it proved to be fairly popular. And it's ended up on the required list at the University of Miami. It's ended up on the required list various places with different, trumpet professor friends of mine and stuff like that. They checked it out and they were like, oh yeah, no, my students need this all the time.
I mean, it's incredible. I mean, I own your books. I can't recommend them highly enough.
Oh, you're the one. Thank you.
Very good. Honestly, guys, get out there and get these. It'll set you up. Even if you pick the horn up and it's not a great day, get into these and your day will get much better. Trust me. It just work through them from the beginning, like anything, like you would with your old Arbans, like the Bibles and stuff. Just open them up and go for it. So, and they really are great. So.
Exactly, and the way that kind of spread into the videos was that I never really thought of making videos until I started watching some. Started seeing that was kind of becoming a thing on YouTube, and started watching them, and spent entirely too long with my head in my hands, going, "What?"
Yeah, frustrating. Yeah. Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. And so it was just really, I mean, it was reactive on my part to try and, put the record straight on a couple of things and deal with some stuff from I hope from a standpoint of common sense. And it seems to have been borne out by doing it for so long. Yeah. It's going to be, in February, it's going to be 3 years since the start of Trumpet A to Z.
That's crazy. It's been going on for that long.
Early 2018. So, we did those 26 episodes for the alphabet it was something like 26 episodes in 30 weeks or something like that.
Yeah.
And at the same time got the exercise of the week thing happening, which lasted, I think, 64 episodes in total over the course of about 15 months. Didn't quite end up being weekly, but as I discovered, it's tricky to come up with a new exercise every week.
Especially when you go on A to Z as well. Especially come up with it. It was ingenious. Well, it sort of came up when
that was a little bit different. The exercise of the week thing was separate from that, but they kind of overlap.
Yeah.
And then just other exercises that have come up and as I've dealt with things, but there's been different series as well. Just kind of more general trumpet tips things. We just did the 30 days of long tones.
Saw that one. A lot of people did that with you.
About 2 months ago. And that's just me literally starting to rebuild after, I stayed busy playing stuff and recording things during pandemic months, but, because I got so busy dealing with video editing and stuff like that, which has also become like the second half of my life at this stage. We do a show with Arturo Farrell and the Afro-Latin Jazz Orchestra called Virtual Birdland. Under usual circumstances, we play every Sunday night at Birdland in New York with the orchestra. And there's been an O'Farrell-led orchestra, either Arturo more recently or his father back in the day, there for 25 years on a Sunday.
Oh, really?
And so I've been doing it for been in the band for about 4.5 years now, and I was depping on it for about 3 or 4 years before that as well.
And you do all the editing for the videos as well, don't you?
Well, that's the thing, and so we've been doing it virtually since April.
Yeah.
Arturo, had a crazy idea to say, well, you see how people make these virtual videos? We should do that, but we should do a show every week.
That's insane.
I know. There's a good reason that nobody does it.
Yeah,
because it's completely nuts.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, but it's amazing. I've watched some of them, and they're quite amazing. Yeah, they really are.
We're fortunate because we had an inbuilt kind of band, and everyone was far enough along that they generally had some recording equipment and stuff like that, and they'd at least done some home recording, and so we kind of had that going. But then they went, well, what do we do about editing the video? And I said, well, I've edited some YouTube videos and things like that. I at least know my way around the software. Let's, I'll take a crack at it.
And then obviously
figuring that we might do it once, and that'd be fun, and it'd be a lot of work, and then it'd be good. And this past Sunday was week 32, 33, something like that.
And you're doing every week. That's crazy.
We've done one every week since April the 19th.
And the fact is, it's not
every Sunday night.
You're playing on it as well as editing it, so you gotta do all your stuff and then get everything else done.
My regular gig in the band is to play third trumpet.
Yeah,
because we have Seneca Black in the lead chair, and it doesn't get a lot better than that.
No.
So
yeah,
I can't really argue with that.
No, you can't.
So my gig there regularly is playing third trumpet, but then when Seneca's out, and he took a couple months off from doing it on the recording, so I was leading the band as well, and then editing all the video. And so you've got a band of at least 18 people, and when we have guest artists or extra supplementary instruments or something like that, the biggest one we've done, we did a joint thing with a high school band for an education project we usually do in the summertime. And there was 39 musicians playing in that group.
Oh, wow.
So if anyone's done one of these video editing things for themselves and just tried to mess with it, that for a regular big band of about 16, 17 people, it's a headache, and it will make your computer mad at you.
Well, as I said to you before the stream,
39 people on the screen.
As I said to you before the stream started, my computer said no. I have to update my computers to eventually, and then I'll be able to do this. But I have seen that you have done a video on YouTube to do with about editing videos as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, we did the Afro-Latin Jazz Alliance is the non-profit organization which is the parent of the Afro-Latin Jazz Orchestra.
Yeah.
And what they do outside of having the orchestra and archiving a lot of the music from the Latin jazz, the greats of Latin jazz in their libraries and things like that. We've got most of the Tita Puente library and most of Ray Santos's charts and all of Chico O'Farrell's, obviously, and so on and so forth. Hundreds, thousands of charts in the entire library. So there's that side of the work, but also what they've been doing is running educational programs, particularly in the New York City public schools.
Oh, brilliant.
To kind of make up for the fact that there's no music education kind of built into the school curriculum any longer.
Yeah. I mean, it was great to see those videos were available.
And so what we did, actually, they have a masterclass series during the pandemic, and I'd already done a trumpet one earlier on, but they asked me if I wanted to come with young lady Astrid Asmundsen, who's the other video editor who helps me with the virtual Birdland shows. And we did a masterclass about the process of doing that to a certain extent. To
a lot of people, it's a foreign world. So,
yeah, absolutely. I'd never done a virtual performance video prior to mid-April.
Oh, really? Wow. You wouldn't be able to tell.
At this point, I've now edited. Last week, it'll be 112 tunes worth.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
in the last 30 something weeks.
So
So
you also have played with Charlie Rosen's 8-bit. Is it 8-bit big band?
yeah, the 8-bit big band. That's
Yeah.
a fun one that we
And
do fairly
you've
often
been
for the
doing
last couple of years, and Charlie's Broadway big band as well, which had a long running residency. But no, I've been very lucky. I've played with a lot of cool people in New York City and beyond. You know, I had a chance to play with the Vanguard Jazz Orchestra a few times. A.L. Vilna's big band has been a thing for the past 6 or 7 years.
Yep.
All kinds of stuff.
Oh yeah, it's been great to see. There's been one project, Dietmar. I got your question, and hopefully we'll come to it just after this, mate. There was one project that you did that obviously caught a lot of people's eyes because it was just so random. I do have a little snippet of it here, and it was when you did the Super Mario Brothers, but with full orchestra. And I think this is quite clever, and I think quite a lot of us guys will like this one. So enjoy this for a bit. If you need a wee, go get a wee, and then we might dive into a bit of geek out trumpet, starting with Dietmar's question after this. What a great concept! That's a great video, honestly, guys.
Yeah,
they've got the whole video there. Go on YouTube and have a watch. All you have to do is put in Bryan Davis trumpet into YouTube, and it'll be in that list. That must have been a fun project to be part of.
Yeah, I mean the 8-bit thing has been really fun throughout. Charlie Rosen, who puts that thing together, is just, oh my God! I mean, what a musician!
Yeah.
Unbelievable arranger, multi-instrumentalist as well. I mean, he kind of cut his teeth as a bass player and playing some guitar and stuff like that in shows and things like that. But he plays everything at this point, and he plays most of it pretty well.
Yeah,
it's a little bit depressing, but also, you know, just remarkable writer. But he's really found a way to take the music he's interested in from his childhood and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you know, he's really into his hobby, as he likes to say, is hiring his friends to play for him. So, which is a lovely hobby to have, and I'm glad to be one of the friends.
Oh, exactly. I mean, it reminds me a little bit of Michael Davis, you know, trombone player. Who
absolutely
did the album Trumpets 11. And and you read the blurb in that, and he just goes, "Well, I just rang up the guys that I've always wanted to play with, and they all said yes." That's like brilliant. Why not? You know, got to try, got to ask.
As Duke Ellington was quoted as saying, if you're going to keep a big band on the road, you need to have a gimmick. The gimmick I use is paying the guys.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So let's geek out a little bit here. So I have a question
Sure.
here from Dietmar Fanner. He says, Bryan, can you say something about warm up, please?
Yes, certainly. I recommend it.
Could you dive into a little bit of what, are there standard, like, each player has a standard thing. Sometimes you walk into a university or even a gig and like there's trumpet players worldwide that even if you don't speak the same language, you'd probably be playing the same language in a warm up. So what's your warm ups?
Mm-hmm. I kind of deviate from a lot of the common stuff that you hear because I think that a lot of the common stuff that you hear isn't a warm up.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really good kind of maintenance practice routine, but it doesn't necessarily get you going in the right way to really be in the best place to get started.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for me, the warm up actually takes place predominantly before I even pick the horn off the stand or out of the box or whatever. And it's just, warming up is a process that, the other place we know that from is if you play sports or things like that, you're involved in anything kind of athletic, you warm up your muscles before you can go and do that. You do some stretches or some,
of course,
light exercises before you get into the full crux of what you're dealing with. And it's just simply to get the blood flowing through the muscles and also to, wash away the lactate that builds up from yesterday's activity while you sleep to help you repair and build.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's the stuff that's responsible for that puffy feeling you get in the morning. When you played hard yesterday and you get up in the morning and you pick up the horn and you go, okay, well, it was good yesterday.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Yeah.
We've all had those mornings.
Oh, we have.
Yeah.
It's where you've just gone that little bit too hard.
You've got to get rid of that stuff before you get started to give yourself the blankest canvas to get going.
Yeah.
And, if you're going to run or lift or whatever it is that you do in the sports world, you usually stretch, but that's not a great thing for the lips because it moves the muscles in completely the wrong direction.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to really go and really stretch your lips out because that's pulling everything in the wrong direction. Instead, what you need to do is get blood flowing through, and the easiest way to do that is to flutter. Mm-hmm. And really start your day out by getting properly relaxed, taking some deep breaths, getting your lungs going, getting your breathing system going, because there's, muscular work that's happened down there as well, and lactate in those systems too. Mm-hmm. And you've got to get it moving from there. String is a big thing. And then from there, I'll take it into a lip buzz to bring some focus to the lips and some form to the embouchure, but without manipulating anything by having the mouthpiece rim in the way. Right. It's very easy to pick the thing up and just get locked into a position, mm-hmm. particularly if it's not feeling quite right when you start, where you just end up going to find that spot, and you've manipulated away from what you would most naturally and most efficiently do.
Yeah. So you're just making it work rather than allowing it to work.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, really.
The other way around. You want, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Making it work.
Yeah. Yeah, I got it right. Sorry.
And that's true, of most things about playing. Yes, you can force it to a degree, but that's never the best way to get a result.
No.
And certainly not in terms of trying to get a good sound out of the thing.
No. You can always tell when someone's forcing that sound.
Yeah. And so, but I mean, then, like I say, if you do the flutter, the thing is you get a little too relaxed to play.
Yeah.
But it has other benefits. So then you've got to bring it in. And the way I like to do that is with a lip buzz. Mm-hmm. Just to bring that focus. And you can see the shape of the embouchure comes into play at that point.
Yeah.
And it brings some tension into the place it needs to be and helps you get focused towards the job of then putting the horn on there and being in a good position and getting comfortable and playing. Now, the important thing as far as I'm concerned is that the mistake people usually make is lip buzzing in too high of a register.
Okay. Yeah.
You see people,
you
say to someone, all right, lip buzz me a note, and they'll go, and you can hear that's not going to do anything useful. You're doing all kinds of different manipulations and forcing to get stuff happening. Some people, a minority of people will naturally buzz a higher register, but for most of us, what I've discovered over the years is that we need to go low.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean we shouldn't develop range with it, but we've got to develop range low.
Yeah.
Because what we're doing requires so much more effort than playing with the horn attached.
Massively. Yeah.
So lip buzzing has got to be done in the low register. The highest note I regularly lip buzz is a low C on the trumpet. And it could be as simple as just getting that going and getting it speaking. Or if you really get into it, then take some kind of melodic pattern or arpeggio pattern or something like that down through there, and then move that down and get some low notes happening with that.
Yeah.
Because it will keep the perfect conditions for playing. It will keep the corners engaged and together, and it will keep the center free.
Sounds great. And that's,
so
that's... that's the ultimate aim, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Keeping this nice and strong here, but keeping all this loose, like regardless of where you're going, wherever you're playing. It's like a lot of people always say to me, like, I cut out at this note or whatever like that. And I just said to them, it's probably, you got an elastic band, and when you're stretching it, it gets super thin, instead of keeping this nice and loose here, and it's something that you can really see on your chops. It really does. You got a great setup, that it keeps this nice and loose. So.
Yeah, it's gotten there over time, and this is the sort of thing that takes time to develop. And there's different ways of doing it. There's parallels with the pedal work in the front of the Maggio, or there's parallels with some of the limited pedal work that's in some of the Claude Gordon stuff and things like that. But for me, I like to do it without the mouthpiece rim impinging on the correct position.
Yeah.
I don't really like to play pedals. And it's not because I'm massively against pedals. It's because I can't do them and I can't figure it out.
Yeah, fair one. Each their
own. I'm abundantly aware that I haven't figured out the right way to do that for my particular physical setup.
Yeah.
And so it's damaging to me to do them.
Yeah. I've heard multiple trumpet players talk about, in the instructional world anyway, I'm not going to steal their quote, so I won't name them, but literally they say that they teach their kids to discover trumpet rather than teaching them trumpet, and as you just nailed it, it's completely different for everyone else, so don't be put off if you see these people being able to play stuff, for the guys out there watching and everything, and then you're sat there going, why can't I do this? What, and it's like, well, you got a different physical makeup. You will find out how you do it, but you got to figure out how you do it, not how that person does it.
Sure. The other side of that is there's certain physical things we all need to do that we tend to do wrong if we start thinking about it.
Yeah, that's true, actually. The more you think about playing, the worse it gets.
In some arenas, and the thing that everyone does wrong as soon as they start thinking about it is breathing.
Yeah.
Because we've been doing that perfectly well for the entirety of our lives, no matter how old we are.
Now, is there a solid breathing technique then, now that you just brought us on there, that you do? Like, do you do with it, off the horn, just generally, maybe walking around?
Yeah, it's called breathing.
Good. Okay. That's cool.
The thing you have to understand that you do or don't do when you breathe is that you don't naturally push your belly out as you breathe.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here talking to you now, and I'm breathing. I'm not breathing super deep because I'm not preparing to do anything.
Yeah.
But I'm breathing perfectly happily, and so are you.
Yeah.
But if you think about it and you feel it out as you're doing it, you're not going like really pushing that belly out as you breathe in. Yet people will tell you that's precisely what you've got to do.
I know. Yeah. Yeah.
And it doesn't make any sense. What you actually do is you sit in a state of low-level core engagement the entire time.
Yeah. Now,
and so, actually what happens as you breathe is your chest lifts up and down.
Mm-hmm.
You take a deep breath, take a deep breath. I encourage everyone who's sitting watching this to do the same thing, whether they're live in the thing right now or sitting at home afterwards, watching it on replay. Take a nice deep breath through your nose and imagine that there's something awesome cooking in the kitchen and you want to really smell it. What happens?
Oh, chest rises up. Yeah, air fills in.
Yeah.
And then it goes straight out again.
Yeah. Did you push your stomach out?
No, of course it didn't. No.
No, because you don't.
No.
Now, here's a slightly deeper question, which is where people get kind of hung up on this stuff. Did your shoulders move?
They probably did, I guess, maybe. I didn't think about that. They might have. Yeah, they move with my chest. As my chest raises.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. And that's the important point. And that's why I pose it as a question rather than saying this is what happens. Yes, your chest lifts up, so yes, your shoulders move.
Mm-hmm.
But apparently the great evil to breathing is lifting your shoulders.
Oh, I know they do that. Yeah, they say that. You did a video on it, didn't you? You did a video on posture, and you had a little chat about that. That was a great video. And funny enough, you bring that up. Mike Lovett said exactly the same things. Mike Lovett said that when you come up, when he breathes, but then when he starts playing, the shoulders come down and he starts playing. It's, and it's just, that's normal. When you breathe in, your shoulder, like you're saying, that it's just natural for the shoulders to go. So
exactly. Now, the thing that we actually have to realize that happens, particularly when we're doing something physical, is that there's one single action that you can consciously do that engages your core. And it's the one thing no one will ever talk about because it's a little indelicate.
And what would that be?
What you have to do is you have to gently tighten your anal sphincter before you breathe.
Okay.
If you do that, you'll find that you can't push your stomach out.
You watch everyone at home trying that now.
I know. It's like a thought experiment. I'm just messing with people.
That's crazy. I've never thought about that. Well, you can't do one or the other. You can't if you hold it.
You can't,
try to do
because
that,
that is the most basic fundamental foundation of the core of your body.
Yeah, right.
And so if you grip right there, then it engages all the muscles together in a system, which is what they're designed to do.
Yeah, right.
You can't push your belly out, and it makes your stomach lift. It makes your chest lift up as you breathe.
Never thought of that.
You can breathe any which way, mouth, nose, whatever you like. If you do that first, you always get that big expansion in the chest.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's not coming
now. If you then keep your chest up while you play, that's what breath support is.
Gotcha.
That's
crazy. So is this how you naturally?
It's those mythical things that people always talk about but never actually explain.
So is this your? Yeah, I was about to say this is such a natural and I don't know the exact word I'm thinking of. Such a humbling thing to hear that someone that can do what you can do, and you're just talking about breathe. Because so many people go on about it's this or that, or like you compress this and you do that, and obviously there must be is there a slight compression when you're going up in the upper register?
100%, absolutely. Yeah. But it's about compressing air and not about blowing harder.
Got you.
Which is where people fall down.
Yeah. Yeah. Speed, not velocity, in a way. No, speed, not.
And also
volume.
the goal of taking a deep breath is not to have a lot of air to move.
Yeah. Yeah. Gotcha.
I want to have a lot of air in, so I have air pressure.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, let's say we've got a gas cylinder. We've got a whole bunch of balloons we want to blow up. Mm-hmm. So you've got like that helium tank right there. Yeah. Okay. What is that?
Oh, it's just compressed air.
Exactly. It's a tank of compressed gas.
Yeah.
If you open the valve at the top of that tank, what happens? What do you hear?
Psst. The air flying up super fast.
you hear the gas and it explodes out of there, and then it keeps going until the pressure equalizes.
Yeah.
Okay, so it'll start and it'll go.
Sounds exactly like it, actually. Yeah.
Well, I'm nozzling it a little bit so you get the sound, but you get the idea, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I think it's fair to say that the kind of overall pitch of that air, in terms of any note you could hear in that kind of hiss, remained consistent for about 80% of that
Yeah. Definitely.
release.
Yep.
And it took what? Probably, if we look back at it, it was probably something like 10 or 12 seconds to release all the way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what that is just air pressure balancing. That's the air falling out of my lungs because it's under a degree of compression that is greater than the outside world, where it can see that there's more space in between the gas molecules.
Huh.
And it's a perfect metaphor for social distancing in this age.
Yep.
Gas molecules are essentially antisocial.
Yep.
And so if you compress them, you put them close together in a contained environment. And if you would open the window and let them see that there's space over there where there's a whole bunch of space in between the molecules, they go, great, we're going over there. We hate it here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they do that with no other, pressure being put on them than just that.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
And
it's just pressure balancing.
That's breathing and compression right there.
Yeah, exactly. So the more that you can keep your breath support in place and maintain pressure on that air, that's what the muscles come in and do, is you keep that chest up. It keeps stuff acting on there, so they just get a little bit squeezed harder. But then you don't blow. You just let the air go.
Yep. And then obviously,
and
too many, obviously people have, but the reason it doesn't work for some people is because they're applying that pressure back on here, which then, like you would if you stuck your thumb over the thing, it just stops what's going on.
Well, exactly. And that's because you're blowing too hard.
Yeah.
For the amount of space you're able to allow the air through, and also for the amount of space there is through that little hole in the mouthpiece there.
Yeah.
It will focus in if I give it a second. Let's get
there. It is.
There we go. Autofocus. You've got to love it. There's a little hole through there.
There's only so much you can put through that, surely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You grab your mouthpiece and you just start blowing through there.
Yeah.
If I blow at all hard on that, what happens? Everything blows up like a freaking balloon.
Yeah.
The goal is to blow gently enough that doesn't happen.
Well,
but apply enough compression to the air so it falls out of you. Now, it's not as open in terms of low air pressure and environment inside the horn as it is outside in the world, because there's a whole bunch of other tubes and it's contained.
Yeah.
So that's why if I just do that into the open air, it goes about 10 or 12 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
But if I, even just on a light breath,
yeah,
you go way longer than that. There's plenty of air there.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't need to move.
No.
I'm not going, I'm going.
Yep.
And that's the difference. And that's where everyone falls down.
Would you say that some people out there potentially have a too big a aperture then? Like how would some people go about? Because something that really changed my playing was, I don't know whether I watched one of your videos or I'm a bit of a stickler when it comes to watching masterclasses. Like every time I'm washing up or something, I chuck like one of your videos or a masterclass or, Wayne or someone. Just if there's a masterclass that's come out, I'll watch it. And someone said there, just to go about producing a note by leaving your lips together, putting your mouthpiece on it, like as in your trumpet, and then just blowing, just going poo, the poo thing. I'm just allowing that. And that was just to shrink my aperture down, not to shrink it down. It's just I always had this thing because I grew up in brass bands and all that stuff that, you know, my aperture had to be nice and big and massive and make a big sound, and it was something that I always wanted to do, and so I did it, and it did change my. And now I'm feeling like you say, less effort for the same result, if you know what I mean.
Well, I
So
mean, again, the aperture is something we tend to, through reading things on the internet, we tend to worry about.
yeah,
And if you're worrying about what that's doing and you're not thinking about what your air's doing, then it's irrelevant.
yeah, fair one.
I could sit here with my lips like this or like this.
Yeah.
But if I'm not moving air, nothing's happening in any
Nothing's
case.
Yeah. hence the name airflow, because it's all about
Exactly.
airflow. Yeah.
You know, you've got to let that stuff happen and let it go.
Yeah.
And, you know, the thing that we, you know, one of the great things that people love to talk about on the trumpet forums and all of that kind of stuff is aperture control. Ooh, aperture control. And it should be completely irrelevant unless you're really playing at the like top half of 1% of the very top of your range or of your ability or something.
Yeah.
You can do 99.5% of the things that you need to do on a trumpet, even at a really high level of playing,
Yeah.
without ever worrying what your aperture's doing.
It's good to know.
Because the aperture is formed by letting the air through your lips.
So it's more about the air.
And the air forms the aperture.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's not worthwhile to, you know, work on the muscles that like do stuff for the aperture.
Of course.
But if you're worrying about it being a certain shape,
mm-hmm.
For one thing, you can't see it anyway because it's inside your mouthpiece.
Yeah, exactly.
And you don't get exactly the same result with the visualizer as you do with the mouthpiece because you're now not moving air into a closed environment.
Yeah, yeah.
So the air pressure balancing is different. You see where I'm going?
I certainly do.
So, you know, so we tend to get worried about the wrong things is the point of this.
Massively, yeah.
And so, you know, we can make breathing really simple, but the approach to breathing I described is actually what pretty much every method of breathing is trying to tell you to do without saying things about your bum.
Yeah, but yeah, exactly. To be fair, just talking about the sphincter actually has like that. I'm going to be going away and try. I think a lot of my viewers rewatching and watching this are going to be going and trying that because that's a game changer. No one's ever said that to me, and it's quite interesting to think about. It really is.
But if you look at all your breathing methods that you hear,
yeah,
you know, let's pick on some of the famous ones. Claude Gordon.
Okay.
What does he say about breathing?
I haven't actually read it for a long time. You could
probably... All right, breathe. His main advice is typically breathe with your chest high.
Right. Yep.
Okay. What am I doing by doing that? My chest is high.
Shallow breath.
No, deep or shallow in terms of the quantity of air you take. By making that engagement, your chest comes up. Your chest is high. You breathe with your chest high.
Oh, so by lifting your chest. Yeah, got you. Okay, yeah.
You know.
So same concept, really.
You know, now that my theory about that particular phrase and why it's not helpful to us these days, but it used to be helpful to people in the day when the books were written, is that for the most part, not a lot of us have done military service. I know you're in one of the forces bands, so maybe you can help me back this up.
Yeah.
But what is the point of standing on the parade ground for all those hours until the guy stops shouting at you about it?
Well, stamina.
Yeah.
Massively. It's about when you need to do that, you can do it pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay, let's follow the train of thought here, though. If you're standing there and you've got to stand reasonably to attention on the parade ground, what's your posture like?
Quite about as straight as it could possibly be.
Pretty straight up and down.
Yeah, everything connected.
everything's connected. Your knees aren't locked. They're slightly, they're not bent, but they're,
yeah.
but if you lock them, you fall over pretty quick. Everyone
Pretty
learns
much.
that.
Yeah.
Even standing in school choir or something like that, someone goes over at some point.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, shoulders are back. You're really open, aren't you? Never thought about it like that.
But what it's teaching you, having that posture for a long period, and the reason they get on your back to stand up straight and do all of that, you learn to do a couple of things. You learn to keep breathing freely, so you keep oxygenated, so that helps your energy level.
Mm-hmm.
And you learn to keep your core engaged.
Mm-hmm.
Now, next time you're doing it, have a think about what your bum's doing. Because I think you'll find that you've got that little grip down there once you really get locked into a position and you feel good.
Yeah, you're probably right, actually. There's a lot of people, I've never thought about it, but there's a lot of people that actually clench their bums as well while they're standing at attention. Yeah. And then it's not until you realize you're doing it. That's very strange. Yeah. I never thought of that.
Because again, it's about putting your core into position. So now that was obvious as a phrase in the 50s, let's say, or early 60s, when the Claude Gordon books were written. He used that phrase a lot in his teaching. Yeah. Because everyone had been drafted.
Of course, everyone had done military. Yeah.
99% of the people taking lessons from him were men rather than women, because that's just the demographic of the time in terms of that stuff. And, everyone had been and done that for the most part.
Yeah.
And so, they knew that if they stood with their chest high and just kept breathing, everything was going to go well.
Mm-hmm.
From basically being able to stand there and do it in the first place and not getting yelled at by the guy whose job it is to yell at you for not standing up straight.
Yeah.
And so on and so forth. Anyway, we digress. That's kind of the point of that,
Massively, yeah.
And it was my late grandfather who taught me that lesson many years ago, when, he was having a bit of a moment and talking to me like I was on the parade ground with him.
That would have been interesting.
In his later years when he wasn't thinking so clearly, that was something he would come by and he was, no, you got to stand up straight, you got to do that. We're going to get shouted at. We're going to have to do all those push-ups and, so on and so forth.
It's funny when you go into schools these days and the amount of kids that think they can breathe when they're all hunched over and not sat up straight, mm-hmm. and, feet bloody crossed, and it's insane to look at. So,
and to a certain extent, engaging the core properly in the way we described fixes a lot of posture things, because it makes you more prone to want to sit up straight.
Yeah, very much so.
And you realize that then there's tension in your knees if your feet aren't flat on the ground or something like that.
Yeah, very much so.
But I mean, that's far too long into that than we needed to go necessarily. But other famous breathing methods, Maggio. I know you've talked to Mike, so you must know what the Maggio quote is.
Nope.
Breathe like a drowning man going down for the third time.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I have heard that before.
That's the quote from Maggio. Put that in context. Think about doing that. If you're scrabbling to get out of the water, keep your head above the water, and your throat's going to be wide open and your stomach isn't pushing out. You're engaged all the way down through there.
Yeah.
What happens when you breathe? Your chest comes up, your stomach doesn't push out.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It gets you in that same position. It makes you do the same stuff. They're just not talking about your bum.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. It's
the wedge breath, Bobby, from Bobby Shue and Roger and whoever else has explained it over the years. I've explained it to plenty of people myself.
Yeah.
It's a system for breathing by numbers that encourages you to keep your stomach in so your chest comes up as you breathe.
And then compressing it. Yeah.
And compressing, beyond that. But at its basic level, it's about keeping your stomach in and getting your core engaged.
Yeah.
And it's mostly successful in doing that, apart from the fact that it doesn't actually explicitly mention the one thing that you need to do.
Yeah. Which we have now. So it might change it a lot for people. In that, because Brian, I don't want to keep you all night, mate. I mean, we've nearly been going for an hour and a half now, and I know you're quite a busy man yourself. We could talk on this
as you'll tell by now. I'll keep chatting forever.
No,
so.
I know. But as I said, I don't want to keep you too long. So everyone out there, you've obviously seen that Bryan is an incredible educator. I mean, he's just literally broken down the breath to a point where telling me stuff I've never heard before, you know, and that's after 30 years of playing, which is incredible. So, when it comes to wedge breathing, would you say for people out there that it's probably best to find someone who's like yourself or Roger or someone who deals with wedge breathing and actually going to them to help them? Because I know there are some people out there like that talk about wanting to be able to do that. And
yeah, I mean, if that's something you specifically want or need to address, then yeah, absolutely. Go to somebody who actually really knows it and can help you break it down and help you go through the stages of figuring that out so you do it right. Because if you get it a little bit off, you can hurt yourself.
Of course. Yeah.
And, you know, and it won't be effective. So it'll just be something you'll give up on real quick and not get the benefit from.
No. Yeah. So in that retrospective mind, obviously Bryan knows how to do it. He's learnt off someone who, I'm guessing, did Roger teach you as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the end, it'd be great to go see Bryan. I'm guessing, Bryan, for people to come find you for lessons, do they go through your website?
Yeah, absolutely. You can go through either website. Either it's bryandav.is is my personal site. So Bryan Davis, just the dot before the is, and or airflowmusic.com.
Yeah,
which is the store with the books, and that's where you go through to pay for the.
If you're on YouTube, I think I've put the link down in the comments, in the description of this video,
to his
website and everything. So please, honestly, everyone, go and get a lesson with Bryan. And if you haven't got his books yet, please go and get them because they're a life changer. Also, go check out Bryan's YouTube channel. It is full of incredible information and it's all free, and he's even states what he's talking about right there. There's a link to what you can go to go get the exercise. You can even do it with him while he's doing the video. Honestly, there's a world of knowledge on Bryan stuff, and he is he's opened this world up to everyone, which is very gracious of him. Bryan, we can talk all night.
No, I was just going to say on that point, Ben, though, you see what you have to understand with the YouTube stuff in particular is that, yes, everything is completely what I do, but that's the version I've found is my first go-to when I'm explaining it to people.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah.
So it's not that it's the generic version, but it's the version that seems to resonate best with most people.
Okay. Yeah.
But as you've heard, I've got 97 different ways of coming around any topic, and I'll talk for hours. So,
and on that note, I was just going to say, how about we get together early next year again on the channel, and we'll start chatting about
Sounds good to me.
So we'll start doing some more stuff, and hopefully live for you as well will be a lot different, and we can start chatting about some of the gigs you got coming up.
Yeah, I hope so. That'd be lovely.
Bryan, I thank you so much for all your stuff. Guys out there, thank you so much for joining. If you're rewatching, thank you so much for catching up with this. And please stay tuned. Next week, we have an exciting trombone player coming up, one of London's finest. So keep your ear down for who that's going to be. In the meantime, as Bryan would say, get in the practice room. Start doing your sphincter. Start doing all your exercises.
Practice.
There it is. Go practice. I was waiting for it. Honestly,
yeah,
you'll get used to hearing that when you watch his videos. So, Bryan, it's been an absolute pleasure. I can't thank you enough
for me
for
too.
joining.
Lovely to see you, mate.
And look after yourself, and we'll get together sometime down the track.
All right. I look forward to it.
Love your work, everyone.
Thanks all for watching.
Thanks very much.